I just wanted to talk a little bit about something that has puzzled Christians and people throughout time. Time is an interesting subject. People say that the earth was created in 6 days. The seventh day, God rested. Now let's put this into concept. An earth day is 24 hours. An earth day on Venus is like 243 hours. So we have to put this in God's concept. God is not bound to earth time. Earth time did not even exist until the third day. So what we have to realize is that when we factor in the 7 days of God, the Bible, I think it says one day is as 1,000 days in God's time. 1,000 days was the maximum number they could calculate to, I think, at that time. That was like an unheard of number. But what we have to take into account is that God is the God of the universe. And being the God of the universe, a day for God could be a billion years. A day for God would consist of the start of a work to the end of a work. Seeing there was at that time no sun, no moon, no lights, no stars, it would be the beginning of work to the end of work. That was the completion of a day. If we were somewhere where there was no sun, no moon, and we just had electrical lights that we cut on and no clocks, we would not know our conceived time because there would be nothing to tell us of time. We'd know when we started to work and we finished the work, or when we got tired. But we wouldn't know how many hours or how many days. To try and calculate a time, a God day, according to a man's day, it's inconceivable. You can't do it. If you were on another planet, 24 hours would not be a day for you. It would be less or more, depending on where you were. So what we have to think of is, okay, we're talking to God of the universe. And we know the timeline through science, through learning. We know that the earth is at least 5 million years old, at least, or not more. I'm just throwing it off my head. So we have to take into consideration that the first man, I think, was found 5.2 million years ago. So take into mind this factor. God created the heavens and the earth. And then on the sixth day, God said he created men and women, told them to be fruitful and multiply. That could have been 5.2 million years ago. Adam was created as a priest to be in God's garden. Adam was not created with woman. Adam was created by himself to tend the spiritual things of God. Adam was at that time, had God's DNA. God blew into Adam's mouth and life came into Adam's mouth. God's DNA was placed into Adam. Adam then took care of the spiritual things of God, God's garden, because God is a spirit. So Adam began to take care of God's things. I mean, you had knowledge there, you had everlasting life there, you had spiritual things in that garden. So he was not told to be fruitful and multiply at that time. There wasn't even a woman at that time. God saw that Adam, when he was tending, he was lonely. So he brought him the animals, he named the animals, and God saw that he was lonely and he created Eve, a woman for him. He didn't just speak her, he created her and molded her. And he took it from Adam, the priest man that he had made, and made Eve a priestess. So they were both in the garden, had no concept of flesh, only spirit. Even though they were in a fleshly body, their concept and focus was on the spiritual things, on spirit. So therefore, when they walked, they didn't see that they were naked. They had no desire, no passion. They just did the spiritual things of God. So then the enemy came to say, okay, let me take you off of your spiritual high horse and put you in that flesh body. If you disobey God and you take from the tree of knowledge, then you'll see that it's a great thing for you. Now, if the enemy had meant for them to be a great thing for them, would have been to eat from the tree of life, which they weren't told they couldn't. If they had ate from the tree of life, they would have never died. So the whole concept was the destruction of man from the beginning. So after they ate from the tree, after Eve gave them the fruit, then they fell and they became a spiritual body, a spiritual man walking in a fleshly body instead of a spiritual man covering a fleshly body. So they continued after the fall. They were taken from Eden and placed on earth. So they were taken from Eden and taken out of the spiritual realm and placed on the earth in the natural realm, where they would tend the gardens and tend everything they had to attend to. And another concept of that is when Cain killed Abel, he said, why are you going to place me on earth? They'll kill me. There were already people here. Now people try to argue it, but it's a fact. There were people here. Come on now, let's get right. There were people here. And the word of God is not a lie. Our concept deceives us because we try to limit God. How are you going to limit God's day to 24 hours? It's not. That's somebody interpreted God's day as being 24 hours. That's not a God day. God's day is a beginning of a work to the end of a work. That's what it is. When he began to create, the first things he created and he finished, that was the first day. So then we begin to perceive that, there was a war in heaven. Where did the war occur? People say there's a war in heaven. There were floods and all the other concepts. But the problem is we're scared to listen to the facts that God is giving us and use him to figure out what happened. I mean, we have a lot of knowledge. Let's not overlook the knowledge that God has given us. Let's look at what he's given us and see it. There's a concept that black, white, large, tall, small, fat, red, brown, that doesn't matter when you walk in the spirit, because the spirit has no black, white, male, female, or anything else. It's spirit. God is a spirit. Now, the enemy would have us fight one another because of a color of a man. But you have to understand, God put us in different colors and different sizes and different bodies to fulfill a different purpose. You have a purpose. Sometimes if you're dark skinned, you can endure the heat more. If you're light, you can endure the cold more. There are different attributes to each color, to each shape, to each person that adds to the body of humanity. We have to stop fighting one another and realize that the way to peace, the way to healing is unity. It's to unite and become one. Stop fighting each other and we can fight the real things, poverty. We can defy war. I mean, there's disease. There are other wars that we have that we need to battle, not battling one another. We battle one another and then we are destroying one another. And those things that we should be battling will overcome us. So we need to take our focus and put it where it should be. Uniting against those things that matter, diseases, poverty. I mean, war, those are things that we shouldn't even be dealing with. It gets me that when God said, I am that I am, it's because he didn't want anybody to be able to put ownership on him or her, or God is not a him or her, he's a spirit. He didn't want ownership to be placed on the spirit because he knew as soon as somebody gave him a name, he's my God only. No, he's the God, he's the only God. So if somebody calls him Yahweh, or somebody calls him Elohim, or somebody calls him Allah, or somebody calls him any name that he answers to, how can you tell God he can't answer to that name? You don't have that authority to tell God he can't answer to any name but the name you give him. And he told you, I am that I am. Don't give me a name. Everybody says, well, I figured out God's name. I figured out God's name. God is the God of the universe. God is all. He is that he is. You can't give him a name. You can't even conceive a name for God that would describe the greatness and power of God. There's no name we can get, so we say God a lot of time. Because there's no way, I mean, Jehovah Nissi, Jehovah Rapha, that's identifying him with different things. But there's no way to encompass everything that God is. There's no way to do it. And until we get to the place where, people say, well, I was born a woman, I was born a man. You had both those attributes in the beginning. You had male and female in you when you were born. If you were born a man, that's because it's something that you have to do in that man body that God has put you here to fulfill. If you were born a woman, there's something in that woman body that you have to do that God has put you here to fulfill. Know this, God don't make no mistakes. You can embrace whatever part of you want to embrace. Every man can embrace a female side. Every woman can embrace a man's side. But if you're born in that body, that attribute is the spirit you should encompass, or you should comfort. There's a lot going on here that we become what I need, what I want. What about me? It ain't about you. It's about us as a race. It's about us as a humanity. Ain't no black, no white, no brown, no green, no red. We have all separated. There was a time where blacks were the master race. There's times where right now there's more white than there is anything else. I mean, yellow. There was a time where, Orientals. There's a time that everybody's had. There's nothing new under the sun. It rotates in and rotates out. But until we get to the point where that doesn't matter, we will continue to struggle with sickness. We will continue to struggle with poverty. We will continue to have wars. We'll continue to be impoverished and just go through the things that we shouldn't go through. Sickness will abound. It will just spread and get worse because we're not looking and concentrating on what we should be looking on. I mean, it's time out for killing kids. When God sends a cure, you prayed and said, God, we need a cure to AIDS. We need a cure to cancer. We need a cure to all these diseases. God sends it in a child. If that child is killed, then that cure is delayed. God always sends it through a child. If you look through history, a child is born that will lead them, but that child ain't born because it was either aborted or killed or shot. Come on now, let's get it right. Let's save the children, save the world. Save the children, save the world. I mean, you want to end poverty, you want to live a life where you don't have to worry about guns and let the new birth come through. There's an answer that a child will come with. If you look at this new generation, they are picking up faster than any of us. And it's because in our DNA, there's memory stored. Nobody understands it. When God placed DNA in us, it kind of fashioned the way we would be, the things that we would do. So what we need to do is save the children, save the world. That's the answer. Stop teaching differences between black and white, brown and red, short and tall, fat and skinny. I mean, stop it. And then we'll have a better world, a better place to be. God, we love you, and we just want to understand you more. Thank you.